Drivers are being squeezed from every direction, higher fuel costs, expanding road charges, clean air zones rolling across the country. Is this really about saving the planet, or are the motorists deliberately being pushed off the road? And is there a deeper, more sinister agenda behind it all? Hi and welcome to Dyer Consequences. I'm Claire Dyer here on Unprecedented TV, the channel that advocates for free speech, brings you the uncensored news and truth, and provides a space to give a voice to the voiceless. Today, we are looking at a debate that's becoming increasingly heated across the UK and also worrying, what many describe as the war on the motorists. We have rising fuel costs, road charges, clean air zones and wider policies that are aimed at cutting emissions, that are reshaping how people travel. Supporters argue that these measures are necessary to tackle pollution and meet climate targets. But critics, like myself, say the burden is falling disproportionately on ordinary drivers, families and small businesses who rely on their vehicles every single day. Across the country, many motorists say that they are under pressure like never before, from fuel duty to parking charges, the low emission zones like ULEZ and other road policies. And for some, it's about protecting the environment and modernising transport. For others, it feels like drivers are being unfairly penalised. Joining me to discuss it today is Howard Cox, founder of Fair Fuel UK, a campaign group representing millions of drivers and businesses who believe current policies are unfairly targeting the motorists. Welcome, Howard.
I'm fine, Claire. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you.
I know, finally I get you on the show.
It's worth the wait.
Yeah, I have to say, not through want of trying. And I specifically really wanted you to come on right now because obviously, you know, we've both campaigned against ULEZ, you and obviously through Fair Fuel, and me obviously out on the streets with direct action. But obviously right now we have what they want to call is a fuel crisis, and even I'm being affected by this. And I kind of wanted to know, obviously there's a lot of pressure, isn't there? And I think everyone's feeling the pressure. I know I am. But what is the kind of feedback that you've been getting about what is going on with the fuel prices, obviously going through the roof?
Well, exactly that. I mean, obviously what's happening is there's a lot of the fuel supply chain. There's a lot of opportunistic profiteering going on. And there's no need to have an incredible increase in price at the moment. But what is happening is that the fuel supply chain, the wholesalers, the big branded oil companies, less so the retailers are held to very strict contracts by the further up the fuel supply chain by wholesalers, and they have to actually put the prices out on orders of the wholesalers themselves. And so what's happening is that because of this volatility, we're talking about the Strait of Hormuz, which is sometimes it's open, sometimes it's closed. I understand the Americans have actually taken over an Iranian tanker, etc. The Iranians aren't playing ball now in talking, etc., etc. And what's happening is the fuel supply chain are loving all that volatility, and it's an excuse to actually put up prices. And one of the worst prices are going up, of course, is on diesel. It's something like 30 to 40 pence more than petrol, which is completely a con. They are fleecing diesel drivers, and the commercial heartbeat of any economy is diesel. They are being fleeced beyond belief, and next month's inflation figures are going to be absolutely through the roof.
See, I actually agree with that, and I'll be honest. You know, do you remember back in the day they were trying to convince everyone to go to diesel because it was cleaner and it was cheaper, and then all of a sudden, you know, for as long as now I can remember, diesel's far more expensive. But I've been saying to people, I mean, I was down at my local garage; they're actually independent, and I said, why on a daily basis in the last couple of weeks is the price of fuel going up? when they've already bought it at the lower price? I mean, I'm not clued up on all of this, but to me, it just makes common sense. They've already bought it in at a lower price and have all these reserves. Why are these retailers suddenly just bumping their prices up? Is it just to cash in?
Well, it is to cash in, but it's on orders from further up the fuel supply chain. You're right. I mean, I know of one garage has put up prices 3 times in one day on the same. Exactly. And we're in a situation which, unfortunately, has been going on for years and years and years. When just before the Tories actually left government, I worked with Claire Coutinho, which is Minister of Energy, and we introduced a thing called Pump Watch. And the idea was that every retailer would actually, when they arrive in the morning, open up their garage, they would actually type in and send to an independent analyst, nothing to do with the government, what they're selling the fuel for that day and what they paid for it in wholesale price. And the idea was actually to get a fair look at the prices across the country based on what oil prices really are. Because one of the things we have is, as we know, and you've heard me say this many times before, when oil prices go up, pump prices go up like a rocket. But when oil prices come down, they come down like a feather, and not by the right amount that they went up by.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's very, very simple, Claire. I mean, this is a market that goes unchecked. Even though it's an essential resource, 37 million drivers in this country. Some people say there's 40 million drivers, but I know that there are 37 million actually driving a car. There's 40 million, I think, actually got licenses. But the fact is, as you said in your very excellent introduction, people need their vehicles, especially the sole trader, the plumber, the electrician, the bricklayer.
Well, that kind of slightly moves me on from a personal point of view. Is obviously we initially had the congestion, then we had the LES, then we had ULEZ to Greater London, which has obviously drawn the biggest publicity due to the fact that so many obviously towns and villages in Greater London are actually in the countryside. Then we've got these LTN coming in absolutely everywhere. People are being fined and taxed. Then you'd been pushed from diesel. Now you are being pushed to drive in electric. Now electric have to pay the congestion charge. Now we have fuel prices absolutely skyrocketing, and obviously they're legitimately saying this is down to a war. But do we actually think there is a war on a motorist? Because now our Mayor of London, in the name of net zero, has obviously in his plans for, I'm going to do the Vision Zero, now wants to tax potentially maybe the same as ULEZ. It hasn't actually been agreed, and it's not obviously, it's on the cards, to tax SUVs on the basis of now safety, and claiming that obviously SUVs are a luxury. So for me, obviously, I had a compliant vehicle, so I managed to escape ULEZ, although I still fought it because I believed it was an unfair tax on the poorer people under the guise of emissions. But now he's looking at putting a tax on SUVs under the guise of safety because of their weight and statistically believing they cause more accidents. Now I have a diesel vehicle that is compliant, but it's an SUV, and it is a necessity for me because I have 5 children, and also I have a health condition. I live in a valley out in the countryside, so I needed the security and safety of having a 7-seater that was also a 4x4 that was going to get me around my village and beyond, when our Mayor of London has inflicted the most useless public transport we could ever have. So do you feel that this is actually, all of it's connected, and it is just a complete war on the motorists to get us off the roads and out of our vehicles?
Well, of course it is. There's so many anti-driver policies. You've listed many of them: the parking, the LTNs, the ULEZs, the congestion charge, even the biased interest in parking. Because you, in certain parts of London, you have to pay more for a diesel vehicle to park. They're all. It is almost. It is. I actually call that segregation. I mean, they are absolutely, totally and utterly attacking drivers. The point is, no government has actually recognised. When I set up Fairfield UK back in 2010, at that point, if you remember, you might be young enough to remember, young Cameron and Osborne were the government with a certain Nick Clegg. There was a coalition government, and what happened, they were going to bring in a thing called a fuel price escalator, which what happened at every budget and every financial statement, so it's twice a year, fuel duty would go up by inflation plus 1 or 2 pence. And if it hadn't been for our campaigning at Fairfield UK, we've got it frozen for the last 16 years. In fact, it's gone down 10% thanks to Rishi Sunak when he ran to the hills during the general election. He did actually, before he did that, he actually reduced fuel duty by 5p. If we hadn't had that, we would be looking at something like paying it. We're upset about diesel being around about £192 today across the country, and £2.30 at motorway service stations. We would be paying £3 for diesel now. That's what we would be paying for if it wasn't for the campaigning that I was involved with, and I continue to be involved with. And we're still the highest tax drivers in the world, despite having that freeze. What is sad, and this anti-driver thing you mentioned about Sadiq Khan, he actually drives a SUV. He's got 2 of them with about 12 blokes in them, protecting his little sorry arse. The man is a complete hypocrite in all senses of the word. He simply hates the motorist. And like Ed Miliband, right in the centre of government with net zero, they're using this and making us all feel guilty as though driving a fossil fuel car. And I hate that expression, fossil fuel, because they're not fossil fuel; they're carbon-based fuels. Because we're driving those, we're all the antichrist. We're pariahs. All those sorts of things, and it's wrong. As you quite rightly say, one of the reasons why I keep going, I don't make any money out of running Fairfield UK. Never have done. It's cost me approaching the £300,000 since 2010 of my own money. That's, you divide 15 into that, you'll see that doesn't sound as much per year. But I get really motivated, Claire, by when I open an envelope and inside it is a little letter which is shaky handwriting from someone that's nearly 90 years of age and has put 5 £1 coins and a piece of sellotape to say, I'd love to give you more, but I can't, but thank you for what you're doing. And one of the things that really appeals to me is that aspect. The fact is that why I campaign is the fact that governments just simply don't understand the importance of the motorist. And I don't just mean that pensioner going to, but I'm talking about a person going to have chemotherapy or do they need their car to get there? In our latest poll, some people are actually saying they can't afford to go and have chemotherapy. So they're doing it every other week now. And that's impacting things like that. That's what motivates me. And then there's the other thing. My daughter recently got married and she drives a 44-ton truck. And she drives it 7 miles per gallon. Now, every time she fills up with diesel, looking at 400-litre tank, it doesn't work out that, an increase, everything that increases in fuel duty or what happens to it, it's huge amounts of money. It has to be passed on to the consumer, us little lot. That's why inflation rockets. And every time, we see, inflation figures each month, the next line usually says, oh, it's because pump prices went up or pump prices went down. Inflation is inextricably linked to the cost of fuel, cost of filling up. Again, the government doesn't seem to understand that. And we're the only nation in the world, as a diesel driver, this may not make you very happy, but we're the only nation in the world that really prices diesel more than petrol.
Yeah. So the fact that we know that currently right now, obviously we are being overcharged on diesel of the excuse of the fact that there's a war going on, but the government will tell us that it's necessary, but is it actually warranted? Do you believe that the prices should be this high? I mean, I'm talking as a stupid person right now, but...
No. You'll find that in most of my experience for the last 15 years, petrol has always been about 7 or 8p higher than it should be, and diesel something like 12p higher than it should be. Those are the sorts of statistics. Now, if we take it now, I reckon that the diesel is something like 40, 50 pence higher than it should be. We are being ripped off to the tune of, no. And this is why I get so upset, because that thing I introduced with Claire Katina called Pump Watch was never fully introduced. It never had legislative teeth. The idea was that I'm all for garages and the fuel supply chain make a decent living, decent profit. But tell us how you calculate it. When oil hits $120 or $95 and its rate is 135 or 133, where does that go into the calculation? So that people like you and me, when we're driving, and and the person, the bricklayer, the plumber, the electrician says, oh, that means I'm going to be paying 3p more next week. I don't mind that, as long as it's transparent and honest. But at the moment, it's not transparent and honest. We are being fleeced relentlessly. and it's going on. And it is part of the war on the motorists, because they all want us to get out of the petrol and diesel cars. We got the 2030 ban coming up, of course,
Yes.
isn't it? New car, new diesel, new petrol sales. And, I'm fighting that one as well.
We just had an article on the screen. It's one that you wrote yourself, because you obviously write articles for some of the papers. What is this one exactly about? Tell me about it a bit.
Well, what it is, you can see it's a nice picture they did actually with the thing into a bunch of credit cards.
Yeah, I know.
I can't take credit for that. I suggested something like that, and the guys there, they did a good job. But I think that was 2021. Crikey, it's 5 years ago, that article. So it's been going on longer, and that was an article fundamentally about us being ripped off at the pumps. But the biggest person that's ripping us off the pumps is the government.
Yeah.
55% of what goes into our tanks goes to the government in tax. And the most dishonest and immoral one of all is the VAT on the fuel duty itself.
Yeah. So do you have any idea, just in the last few weeks, how much money the government have made on VAT through obviously fuel prices going up?
I'm glad you asked that question. I just so happen to know the answer. Yeah.
Do you? Can you tell me?
Yeah. Since March the 1st, the amount of VAT they've, because that's the one that goes up. Fuel duty stays the same. It's 52.95p per litre. So if they use a car less, they get less fuel duty in, obviously. But VAT is directly related to the whole of the price, the whole of what you put in your tank. And that she's made something in the region of £200 million extra in the last 5 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
Now, you just think what that's all about. And unfortunately, you and I and the other 37 million drivers in this country have been forced to pay an extra £1.3 billion to fill up our cars in that 5 to 6 weeks because of this Middle East crisis. Now that
you know what the words are at the moment, all by design. Yeah. And obviously the war on the motorists, many will believe that, yes, there is a war on the motorists. It's not just a slogan, and it's one part of a much bigger agenda. But then out of that one part, which is the war on the motorists, all of the things that they are doing is all effectively to get us out of our vehicles. And I'll be honest, you were saying about why you feel so strongly about it, and you said about someone not being able to get to the hospital to get chemotherapy, and I actually had a Blade Runner on. He spoke about what his motivation was. It's fine. He got found guilty. There's no hiding. He was in court. He was charged in court. Okay. He got found guilty. So he's free to tell his story, and he doesn't care. And he basically said why he did it, and why in the first instance he obviously started fighting back with direct action against ULEZ. And he said it was the story of somebody local near where he lived who actually couldn't afford to pay the £12.50, and he decided that there wasn't a bus available, and he decided that he would walk to the hospital. And it was the hottest day, I think, of the year, and I think he got heat stroke or something, but he actually collapsed and had a heart attack and died. And he just thought, no, I can't stand by and watch this. And that was the same for me. And I feel a lot of people that they just don't. I think we're so clouded by climate change and net zero, and we've got to achieve net zero by, 2030, 2040, whatever. It drives me crazy that people are losing common sense and rationale, and actually thinking, it's like when they think about ULEZ. I actually had someone interview me last week for a French magazine surrounding ULEZ. And I said, if I say London, what's the imagery in your head? And he was like, well, yeah, Westminster, London Bridge, St. Paul's Cathedral. And I said, so basically the City of London. And he said, yes. And I said, but we're Greater London. So people think of us as obviously, buses, trams, taxis, tube, train stations. So many villages don't have that. We don't have that. And when you've got elderly, disabled people, mentally impaired, and you've got poor public transport, you need your car. And they don't seem to care about that, do they? They don't care. And they are trying to price you out of your car any way they can. So it's taking away your freedom through your own circumstances. And I'm going to say, if this continues, he's going to price me out of my car. And I've said categorically, where I live and my health, that's my freedom taken away. I'm already limiting my drives based on how quickly I'm going through my fuel tank right now.
And you're not alone on that. You're not alone on that, Claire. The point is, as you know, you and I have discussed this for many years about this freedom aspect, and we're looking at 15-minute cities. We're looking at all these sorts of things whereby they're trying to get us out of the car and control our lives. And this is a fact. This is exactly what's happening. The WEF, and then you've got the UN, we've got the WHO, we've got all these bloody acronyms that are run by, funded by billionaires and etc. These people, for some reason or another, I still don't understand the politics behind it. Someone must tell me that one day. Want to control our lives, and one of the best ways to control our lives is to keep us at home and not in our cars. Now, you're dead right. I mean, I go up to London almost 2 or 3 times a week. I live in the heart of Kent. Not far from you. Further way down in south of Tunbridge Wells. Yeah. And it only takes an hour to get up by train to Charing Cross. It's great, and then I get a tube or a cab or anything. It's dead easy to get around London where I want to go. It's easy, but the point is, I have to say this now. The way London has turned out, as we know, I stood for London Mayor, as you know, Claire, and thank you for helping out. You were very kind, supporting me in that one. And obviously it was a disaster for me, but I knew I'd lose. But the thing is, my daughter, my wife, I won't let them go to London on their own now. These sorts of things, it's a dangerous place. And where's the safest place to be? In a car. And that's nothing. Even in urban areas, be in a car.
Yeah, well, we're going to continue that because we are going to go to a break. And speaking of cars, a show that you've already been on, Full Throttle. And that's Full Throttle, another show here on Unprecedented TV, which Howard has been on many times, I believe. And I'll just give you something to throw in there, slightly off track. But I used to work for Formula One. I did.
Bernie Ecclestone, did you?
Yes, I did. Yes, I worked for. Do you know he's shorter than me? And I'm 5'1".
Everyone's bigger than him. I mean, there's no one.
This is when he was married to, I can't pronounce her name, Slavica, and she's about like another 2 foot taller than him. But yes, I did. For my sins, I worked for Formula One. I was very much into motor racing back in the day. I still love a car. That I can't lie. I have a weakness for cars. It's the one thing. I don't care for hair, nails, or anything like that. But I love a car, and I love the sound of the engine. And if we're going to move back to vehicles, electric, never in a million years, they have no soul.
No,
they literally have no soul. But you were saying how it takes you from where you live, and you're further out, quite a bit further out than me. Well, not that far, but how many miles? Probably about, I don't know, 15 miles.
Well, I'm 45 miles from the centre of London, so whatever that works out to be.
So I'm about 15 miles from the centre of London. And to put it in perspective, where you live, you don't come in under Greater London. I, unfortunately, come under Greater London and under the Mayor's control. It takes me longer than an hour by public transport to get to London.
It's no surprise.
It would take me just over an hour, but to drive, I can actually do it in just over an hour, depending on traffic, hour and a half. And again, you're saying about your daughter. I mean, even round here now, because obviously antisocial behaviour and knife crime, which should really be a priority as well for the Mayor of London, also nationally, my doors are locked straight away.
I know. Someone asked me the other day when I grew up, because I was born in 1954, and at the end of the 50s and the middle of the 60s, I was brought up in southeast London in a place called Lewisham and New Cross, around that area. And people said, "What was it like?" I said, "It was great. Everyone knew everyone." And despite all the coal coming out of every chimney, there was a lot of smoke flying around the place. You're talking about clean air. God, it wasn't then, but no one cared about it. Everyone knew each other. People used to knock on the back door and say, my mum's name was Jones, and they said, "Joan, can I get a pint of milk out the fridge?" And they just walked in and walked out again. We said, "No problem." Now everything's locked up. Everyone's, scared of their shadows, all that sort. And quite right, you say, I've been mugged twice at Charing Cross.
Really?
And I'm 6'4". Yeah, but it sounds incredible. But the definition of mugging is someone trying to steal something from you. And it was one of these electric scooter guys, on one occasion. It's like an Eastern European, I think it was, a person. And I fortunately managed to hold on to my phone.
Can't say that, Howard.
I know. I'm regularly a racist. It's quite a badge of honour being called a racist this day.
Oh, do you know what? I was just talking about this earlier today with my friend. I said, we have got a bit of a problem. I have to dare say, and I actually had a rant about this because I said I'm not allowed to say this, but an immigrant, and it's been going on for months, and he will harass young girls, old women, young males, grabbing them, putting an arm around them, trying to get them back to his HMO. The police are very full aware. And I said, but you're not allowed to say this. You're not allowed to. And someone said, if being concerned for the welfare of women and children and their safety now makes me a far right racist, then they said, well, do you know what? Then I'll take that badge, with honour, because
that's exactly what I say. I mean, if that means you're looking after your family, your friends, and especially, dare I say it, the weaker sex, I say it in the nicest way. There's a bit of misogyny for you.
Definitely.
No, but seriously,
a lot of the women are the ones that are out on the front line, Howard.
I know exactly. Well, I work closely with a woman called Sarah White. You might have heard of her. She's one of the Pink Ladies and things. She's become a very dear friend, and we know, and we're in the same political party. But the thing is, some of the things she's told me about what's happened to her, and the people. And this is why she got involved with the ones in Epping. And right across the country, I'm seeing the whole thing. But going back to the car thing, it's important.
Well, this is the thing, because I was going to say, there's so many things going on, and actually I say everything's connected. You're talking about far right racists, that's a narrative being pushed. I believe that crime rate is going up deliberately so that we are all in fear, so that we don't want to freely travel about so much, but also so that they can bring in the state surveillance and the CCTV. That then brings us on to ULEZ, pushing ULEZ under emissions. It gets people out of their vehicles, but they're also going to be used for state surveillance. So I definitely believe there is an agenda when it comes to our vehicles and us as motorists to take away our freedoms.
Absolutely right. I mean, that is a deliberate policy. You can see it. And if we criticize anything about that, we're, just look at the various things that are happening at the moment. When we criticize that horrible Southport murder, those 3 kids, 3 gorgeous little girls that were murdered, sliced apart by that horrible, I'm not even going to mention the guy's name because it makes me feel ill thinking about it. Anyone that criticised that was accused of being a far-right thug. Look at what happened to Lucy Connolly, with that post she put out. Okay, it was a daft post, but she didn't need to be given a 30-month sentence. And all this sort of thing. I'm very close to people like Tommy Robinson, and all he's doing is highlighting the child rape gang issues. And again, I repeat, what I said right from the beginning is that the safest place to be in this, to go anywhere at the moment, is in the back of a car, not in a bus, not in a train, in a car. And that's the safest place to be. You can control where you go. You can get away quickly. All those sorts of things. And I drive in London, and I do drive a hybrid vehicle. So when it's down below 10 miles an hour, it becomes an electric vehicle, which is great. But you can't really go above 10 miles an hour in London.
No, and so obviously what's on the screen now is all part of the Vision Zero, because Vision Zero is all about safety. And this is what, so people thought, oh, ULEZ, it's here, that's it, get on with it now. And I was just going to say, I actually put up the Freedom of Information request from the ONS, which said obviously one death attributed to obviously pollution. And you then get accused of, oh, so you don't care about kids' lungs and you want kids to get asthma. So there's still people that still believe in ULEZ. They believe that it's made a difference. And people thought, right, okay, that's it. My car's compliant. And there's what, I don't know, whatever figure they want to put out there. There's 2% of vehicles that are non-compliant now, and cars are becoming cleaner. Fine, great. That's all emissions, and we've all done our bit, and the air quality is so much better now. Brilliant. Let's all give ourselves a pat on the back. But now we have Vision Zero in the pipeline. And I think people need to be aware of what this actually entails. So to start with, it is SUVs, based on, as I said earlier, vehicle road accidents. So they're claiming statistically SUVs have more accidents and also cause more fatalities because of their weight, their blind spots, etc., etc. I know people are going to fall for this, Howard, aren't they?
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely. It's interesting because electric vehicles are heavier than petrol and
exactly.
diesel. You know, you get it's a complete con trick. They're using this sort of thing. There's a lot of jealousy involved with this as well. I mean, I've seen that when I talk to certain civil servants in local areas. You say, "Oh, you drive an SUV? Oh, you must be rich." You know, and it's bollocks. You know, the whole thing. You as you said, 5 kids, your hubby, and I expect you've got animals or something. You know, might chuck them in there, and that sort of thing. You deserve to have it. And what is wrong with this driving what you want to drive? I get frustrated on 2 aspects. So people, you know, because I'm 71 years of age, and I'm in a situation now where they're talking about me testing me every 3 years, you know, this sort of thing. And, you know, I get fed up the back teeth behind a little car that's doing on a 60-mile-an-hour road in the country, doing about 25 mile an hour. Jenny's my wife here in the room with me at the moment. She'll tell you, both of us actually swear like filio.
Sorry, you know what I hate, Howard? I
Yeah.
hate someone that's driving a sports car like an Aston Martin or a Maserati or I don't go for the cliches, the Lamborghinis. I like the unique cars, and they have got
taste.
And and I'm like, you're driving at 30 miles an hour. If you can't drive that car how it's supposed to be driven, then you should be honoured the luxury of driving it. That car deserves to be driven.
Well, but you're exactly right. But the point is, we should be talking about, because obviously there is dangerous driving, but that's not police now because there's no police on the bloody road.
Yeah, and that's
that's
exactly what I was going to say. Go on, sorry.
No, it's. I mean, I like people to be decisive, and I'm not worried about speed. Obviously, we got to be within the limit. All that, even though we get in the roads around here, you get de-restricted roads. You can do 60 mile an hour on a single track road. That's stupid. And yet, on a dual carriageway, you'll find they're doing 20 mile an hour in London.
This is the thing. It makes absolutely no sense. And obviously, we've got the picture here of the LTNs. Now, all of these went up during lockdown when nobody was noticing. And now, if you drive down these roads, you get fined, which so many people can't afford, because then it escalates because the fine doubles and then you've got the bailiffs. But not to mention the fact that by taking the vehicles away from all of these back streets, you're actually pushing them onto main roads where they're sitting in more traffic. So they're idling, creating more pollution. There you get your data, because that's where they have their data things. And then, as I say, with the it's common sense. So with the Vision Zero, this whole safety thing, I said the same thing. Now, newer vehicles have all this technology on them now. They're more streamlined. Your indicators will flash at you if there's a vehicle coming up on your near side. You've got your pre-sense, even with the electric vehicles, I think they're more dangerous, by the way, Howard, because they'll brake at nothing. I mean, my car's got pre-sense on it, and apparently, which I clearly know because it will brake for something that's invisible, it can even be affected by a leaf. Now, all of a sudden, your car just suddenly slamming on the brakes, so to argue the fact that, we're going to have to potentially tax SUVs, a daily charge, like ULEZ, potentially. It's not obviously a given yet, but knowing the way things go, based on safety and obviously accidents, I call absolute bull on that, because then what about 17-year-olds who've just passed their test? What about over 80-year-olds? No offense, but who probably should have have to take their driving test every year just to make sure that they are still fit to drive, which we don't do that in this country. It's like when we apply for our driving license after 10 years, we're paying £10. What, just to get another card and a new expiry date? Why aren't people having refresher tests to make sure that they are still safe to drive? So at the end of the day, it comes down to, you're either going to drive sensibly or you're not. You're either going to drive within the speed limit or you're not. That to me would suggest what causes the accidents. And then, like you said, ironically, electric vehicles are now potentially heavier than most of these other vehicles on the road. So that's where I would see that heading, because all the people that drive electric right now are kind of thinking, well, they're laughing, aren't they, when it comes to the fuel duty right now and how much we're having to pay for petrol and diesel, going, oh, it costs me 50p to charge my car, ha ha ha, but now at some point they're paying road tax, they're paying congestion charge. So sooner or later, if Vision Zero goes through with this tax on SUVs, it'll be, well, actually electric vehicles are heavy as well and they can cause fatalities, so we're just going to have to put you into the mix as well. People aren't seeing it, aren't they?
Well, it's this book and cover situation. I don't care what age you are. You've got to be fit to drive. Everyone should be tested, in my opinion, on a regular basis. Obviously, I see young, dare I say it, young mums taking their kids to school, parking 4 feet from the curb, dropping them off with the door open, on the main side of the road, people going past without thinking. They don't have that empathy to understanding things. And it's all about reflexes. And my reflexes are fantastic at the moment, but I hope someone will tell me when my reflexes disappear, and my keys away. We did it. My mother-in-law, we took her keys away because she tried to get through a gap, which was actually a little a pedestrian footway. She thought it was a road, and bless her cotton socks. In the end, she recognised that that happened. And I see people, driving who are 25, 30 years of age, driving terribly, not necessarily fast, but terribly. There's a bunch of electric cars.
Exactly.
That's another story, isn't it?
And then, I put up something the other day and people are saying it's AI, but it's the mining in the Congo.
Well, as you know, I've written various things with the Alliance of British Drivers and things. We've written various things about this, about what the whole aspect of whether EVs are truly clean vehicles. They, in production terms, from cradle to grave, they are worse than petrol and diesel. I can guarantee that sort of thing. Just ask all the guys on full throttle. They would tell you exactly that. And I've written reports for that, and I've presented in Parliament to that effect. And the hypocrisy of this. Yes, the tail emissions are zero. Yes, they are. But if they'd allowed, because you've got a diesel, because you don't have to pay ULEZ, yours is Euro 6 standard, which is, and well done. You've done a cracking job on that one. No problem at all. But if we hadn't had these ban targets, and Boris Johnson's got to take a lot of blame for that, because he actually suddenly woke up one morning and said, let's ban new diesel, new petrol car sales down to 2035, and then it went to 2030, and then thank heavens for Sunak, he did listen to our report that ABD and myself and MAG put together, and we moved it to 2035. Great. But it's now back at 2030. Now, my point here is, Claire, it's very simple. If there weren't these bans, the motoring industry would actually carry on making cleaner vehicles. We'd be at Euro 7 or Euro 8 by now, and we will be using our own resources here, i.e. our own fracking and our drilling in the North Sea. All these sorts of things are common sense. So why the bloody hell is our government doing what they're doing? It can only be because some ideological political control of our lives.
I do believe that. I do believe it's an agenda, and I do believe it's mainly just about power, money, and greed. I remember being caught out. I actually did previously have an older 2000. It was a 2016 Mercedes GLS, and it was in the lower tax bracket. It was the 200 odd tax bracket. And obviously the reason being was because I remember the government basically saying that any vehicle that was made after 2016, that was obviously less emissions, they would put them in the lower tax bracket rather than in the higher. I think it was around about £500. So obviously the car manufacturers started making their cars, obviously their vehicles, a lot cleaner. So then when it came to buy my next SUV, I actually checked it on the government site and it still said it was the same tax bracket until I came to take it off the forecourt. Yeah. 2 days before the end of the month, which I kicked myself for, it was in the higher tax bracket because the government suddenly realised that, oh, we're not making money out of this, so we're gonna scrap that. We know that the car manufacturers are making their cars with less emissions, but we're not getting the money for this now, so we're just gonna forget about it and put them all in the higher tax bracket again, especially newer vehicles. Because I think the way they saw it was, if you can afford to buy a vehicle, I think it was over 40,000, wasn't it? Then surely you can, surely you can afford to pay the higher amount. So they just lumped it on, not because it was necessary for it. And it's all of these things are the same. I mean, we've had obviously another one of your articles come up about, obviously they're just trying to price us out of the vehicles. We've had the picture of you on the back of the trike at a ULEZ demonstration back in the day. I think this is you on the BBC. I mean, as you said, you've literally given your life really to the motorist. As I said, I think it's one of the biggest things in what we believe is the agenda that is first at this point in time is going to take people's freedoms away first before we even move on to things like digital ID and currency. They're already manipulating us through our vehicles.
Well, there you go. I mean, the digital ID, I'm actually speaking at a Together thing at Trafalgar Square. I don't know when this is going out, your thing, but in the Saturday after this recording, I'm speaking about that. And the big thing for the motorists is this pay per mile, having the spy in the cab, spy in the car type thing. How are they going to do this? They're relying on the fact that, once a year you have an MOT, but the first 3 years you don't have MOTs on a new car. It just can't work. And you said something just now which brought it home to me. The truth lies in the fact is we're just simply cash cows now. What gets me about it, we were asked to move to electric vehicles, even though we have a national grid that can't charge things up. And as you said, the 50p they boast about it, all that sort of thing. That's all going to change. They're paying the congestion charge. They're already paying pay per mile in 2027. They're going to be doing that. I can't remember the exact figure.
Are they definitely? They are definitely doing that. Yeah. Project Detroit. Well, we know already.
It's definitely happening. Yeah, it was in the budget. They're doing it 2027. I can't remember the exact details of it, but I think it's something like 3p per mile or something like that. They're going to pay a tax. So they're doing 30 miles. They're paying for every 35 miles. They're paying £1, that sort of thing. So here we go. Now the idea was the electric vehicle was to save the planet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's to get more cash in for the government, because the most effective way of taxing vehicles is through fuel duty, because the tax collector is the garage. They don't do it. We go in there, we just pay, and that sort of thing. And the VAT is collected by the garage. All of it's simple. But £1 billion a week is what the motorists in the country pay to the government in Exchequer. And of that one, it's £50 billion a year, but only 18% of it goes back into roads.
I get the question. Well, I get this one question asked to me all the time when I say they don't want people driving vehicles, so they want us all out off the roads. And you've just said how much, obviously, the motorists make them. And that's the question I keep. Well, it's actually my dad who keeps saying to me, I can kind of get what you're saying, because that's what it looks like. He said, but it doesn't make sense, because obviously the government makes so much money out of the motorists. Where would they get that money from? Where would that tax come from? Because they'd lose that money. And that's what I can't answer.
Well,
can you answer that?
Well, it will be. We are going through to the pay per mile situation. About 3-4 years ago, fuel duty generated £34 billion a year. Now that's down to about 27 billion because of electric vehicles are now paying for it, and people are driving less because of the cost of fuel, the cost of VED. We haven't spoken about that one, the tax situation. Well, you mentioned about the tax ban just now. But the thing is that the only way they can do this is pay for the use of the roads. And I'm all for that in many respects, but it cannot be fair. I'm still working on how it could be fair, and that means everyone who uses the road. That means cyclists. They should pay a tax. They should be registered. They should be insured. They should be MOT'd.
I do believe they should be insured. I probably would be a little bit fair and say, why? Do they actually damage the roads? Should they pay tax? They definitely should have insurance.
No, they don't damage the roads. You're absolutely right. But if they want to drive a road that does not pothole, they could contribute to its maintenance. It's like anything you do. I mean, I don't damage the road with my car, in my opinion, that much, because I drive quite sensibly now. 20 years ago, I was a little road, a terrible driver. I was driving, screeching around corners and all that sort of thing. But I drive sensibly, and it's trucks that do this, and they already pay through the nose. I'm talking about cyclists should contribute to the roads they use. They shouldn't be free of charge.
I'll be honest. All of a sudden, and I tried to sort of sit on the fence and look at both sides and be of a critical mind. And I could say, it's like your house. When you renovate your house and decorate it, it's all nice and clean. Come 15 years down the line, things start going wrong and breaking, and the roads are a little bit the same. So I kind of look at it. Our roads round where I live are an absolute state, absolutely everywhere. Potholes seems to be the biggest issue, doesn't it, nationally? Everyone's getting very upset about that. But I kind of said, well, maybe it's kind of their time that, they've been there quite a while. They're obviously due to have some maintenance. But I also can't ignore the fact that electric double-decker buses, obviously the electric vehicles going over and over the roads, I do think that's contributed a lot. So yes, I've always said from day one, I do think electric vehicles should pay tax, if not actually more tax, because tax was supposed to be for the maintenance of the roads, and they're doing the most damage to the roads.
Well, really, the tax should be based on the weight of the vehicle. Simple. That's the way it would work. A cyclist is very light. They pay 50 quid a year to use the road, whereas a double-decker electric bus perhaps should pay, £5,000-10,000 a year to use the road. But don't forget, you think about it, I don't know how many miles you do a year, Claire, but, this sort of thing. But the average motorist does about 7,000 to 8,000 miles a year.
I thought it was about 10.
No, that's the usual thing for insurance purposes. They say that.
So I used to before I started doing all of this. I was a bit of a recluse. People don't believe that I kept myself to myself, and I didn't like to mix with people. But I used to do less than 4,000 miles a year in my car. So my car I could easily afford. Since I've been doing all of this, I'm probably averaging at about 9.
Well, definitely. Your activist career, or what, you don't like being called a campaigner, I know that, but you're
I like being called a campaigner.
All right, sorry.
A protester or an activist.
Sorry.
Or a humanitarian. There you go.
Oh, right. Okay, all right, I'll let you off. Yeah, but it's not cheap campaigning, is it?
No.
I travel around the country. I've been asked to speak in an event in North Yorkshire in next week or sometime, and I'm going up to London again on Saturday. It's all coming out of my pension. Everything I'm doing comes out of my pension.
And people don't believe that as well. They think, do you know what? That's the other thing as well, as the apathy. People now just cannot comprehend or even believe for 1 second that anyone could be campaigning or fighting for anything just because they genuinely care. There has to be an ulterior motive. Whether it's you want to be a social media content creator, or whether you just, you want to earn money, or you want to be an influencer. They just can't believe for 1 second that you're just genuinely doing it. And they don't look beyond that. So as you're saying, how much money you spent over the years for fair fuel. And obviously now you're saying, you're paying out of your pension. I mean, I don't want to ask how old you are, Howard, but obviously, you know.
I've already said I was 71.
Okay, well, I wasn't going to make you say that publicly, but the simple fact is, you should be enjoying a nice retirement right now and spending your pension on yourself, but you're not.
No, you're absolutely right. My wife and I both say that occasionally, but equally, Jenny, I think I can say this, Jenny, can't I? But if I didn't do what I do, I think I'd just probably die. I have to do these things,
Or she'd kill you.
Yeah, well, she might be, yeah. But I'm so angry what's going on. I'm glad I'm at the end of my life, sort of, because I wouldn't like to be a 20-year-old now growing up in this world, because what have they got to look forward to? It's a very, very sad situation. And going back to what I've been campaigning for, I mean, one reason why I stood for London Mayor wasn't because of my good looks. It's because I had 1.7 million people signed up to Fairfield UK, and Nigel Farage wanted to tap into that. That's the sort of thing. And I said twice I said no. And the third time I said yes, simply because of the ULEZ thing. We've got me so upset, about it, because that really fitted in with my approach to actually fairness, fair fuel, fair driving, all the other things.
It affected a lot of people, and people don't
Yeah.
realise just how many people it's affected.
Yeah, and the other thing also is this whole lie about, you mentioned about one person actually having a death certificate for actually dying of poor air quality.
Manipulated.
That person lived on the South Circular, and had chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and severe asthma, but he lied and said about 4,000. And were dying. And let me give you this a bit of exclusive here, Claire, for you. I am talking at the moment with a lot of legal people at the moment. I'm talking to some senior barristers. I want to actually prove that Sadiq Khan has lied in public office to pursue his career. And I've spoken to barristers with the evidence I've got. And if you've got some evidence, please give it to me as well. They think we've got a 90% chance of winning. I've just got to raise money to fight the case. This is a criminal one. It's not. I'm going for a criminal. So he'd have to, if we proved it right, he'd have to go to jail.
And it probably wouldn't be the only thing as well, because obviously when it comes to TfL and it comes to other things regarding ULEZ, there's been a lot of other crimes committed, whether that's the unlawful lasing ULEZ signage, and also I would hazard a guess, possibly, I'm not going to categorically state this because I don't want to get done for slander, even though I know the truth, fraud and perjury within the courts when they've actually caught someone for criminal damage to the cameras committing fraud and perjury in court.
Well, those are the sorts of things I need to come and talk to you about if you know that. But the other one, of course, is
what the evidence.
The other thing also is that I've done a lot of measurement of air quality at roadside and down in the underground, the tube, and he's quite happy to take money from people to go down the tube at 4,000% more particulate pollution down at the platform level compared to up roadside above. Now, and it meets European standards of acceptable emissions at roadside, but it's 4,000% more down at the platform. And how can that be fair? Why is he not introducing, like the Russians have in their tube system, massive air conditioning filtering system?
Because he doesn't care. It's not about air quality. It is about an agenda. Howard, we have run out of time, but I did want to quickly say to you, there was a couple of things. Right, first of all, do you believe that the government are going to ration fuel for the motorists and also for the planes, jet fuel?
Certainly for the planes, jet fuel is much more of a problem that comes through the Straits of Hormuz and through the Red Sea.
But not necessarily for the motorist.
Not at the moment. I think we're still, the supply is no problem at all at the moment coming to it. The issue we do have is, of course, we import a lot of diesel that comes from Holland and from America. So that's the only problem we have. And
it's not on the cards in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, we're fine.
Right. The other question as well is obviously, talking about the Mayor of London, he is chair of C40 Cities, and obviously he is signed up to the World Economic Forum and Agenda 30. So what do you think about net zero? Give me one line, because we are running out of time.
Well, my simple thing is net zero is complete sham, complete lie. It's a fantasy project, and it's going to bankrupt our country.
Final question. As the government is obviously also, doesn't matter what government it is, what party, they are also signed up to the World Economic Forum, global agenda for pushing net zero. Where does that actually leave Fairfield future with negotiating with the government when there obviously really is a net zero agenda to push forward?
Well, at the moment in time, most of my Fairfield UK campaign has been with the Conservative government, and it was very successful. I have to say thank you to Rachel Reeves. I've never thought I'd say this publicly. for the last two budgets, she has actually frozen fuel duty because of what I do with the petitioning, what I do and get MPs. But unfortunately, you can see that petition there, 130,241 signatures delivered to, and they couldn't say no to that. The problem we have is that she's promised to put it up again in the autumn budget, and that's what I'm fighting for now. So Fairfield UK is always going to keep fighting for the motorist.
Brilliant, thank you. And we have run out of time, Howard, and thank you so much for coming on and for joining me and sharing your perspective on this.
It's been a huge pleasure, Claire. Good luck to you. Your career in television.
No way, no chance. Thank you. So, the debate around what many call the war on the motorist clearly isn't going away anytime soon, from rising fuel costs and road charges to the expansion of clean air zones. These policies are literally changing how millions of people travel and live, and not in a positive way. The question many people are now asking is whether this simply is transport policy or part of a much wider direction that is affecting everyday freedoms. And perhaps most importantly, the real question is, will any political party stand up to the Mayor of London and the government and push back, not just against the war on the motorists, but what some see as a much growing war on the people? So thank you for watching Dire Consequences here on Unprecedented TV, the channel that stands for free speech, uncensored news, and giving a voice to the voiceless. And I'm Claire Dyer. Until next time.